Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
Branding and marketing strategies for B2B businesses. Today's topic of conversation. What's going on, guys? Another podcast going down. We have a second generation president of a business branding and marketing firm founded way back in 1964. So let's just say this guy knows a thing or two about branding and marketing. I want to introduce Ed Delia to the show from Delia Associates. What's going on, Ed?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So listen, For those folks who don't know who Ed is, I want to get some context around who you are, what you do, and why you do it. So can you share with our audience that answer?
Yeah. You got it. So I'm Ed Delia of Delia Associates. I'm a second generation president of the company which my dad founded. He passed away in 2012, but he had retired in 2000. So I've been involved in the business since 95, but grew up around the business as a kid and just through my teen years. And then all the way up after college. The business was founded as a traditional advertising and PR firm, predominantly serviced a variety of industrial and manufacturing B2B clients. And as I got involved, I had a real keen interest and passion for this idea of brand. So that was my vision for the company as I started to come into the company, and we executed the buyout, and my dad subsequently retired. So since probably around 2000, we introduced our core brand development platform we call the Brand Leadership Solution. And that's a proprietary and trademarked process that we have and that we use to take B2B brands through something of a journey to either invent, reinvent, or reimagine themselves as stronger, better, higher performing, and highly profitable brands.
I love it. How'd you get bit by the branding bug? I'm curious.
Well, at the time, if you think back to the mid to latter 90s, which is as I was getting into the business, let's think about the musical style of the day. It was grunge, right? So we also saw that reflected in a lot of the creative styles. It was almost like a period of grunge creative. And people were we also saw the onset of the web for more of a commerce and commercial use. And I found it very odd that a brand that we know that offline was reimagining itself in sort of a grungy, raw, creative way online. And I said, that doesn't make sense. It's the same brand. Why does it look different online than it does offline? And what I started to realize is that a lot of these business-to-business supply chain brands who are our clients really didn't understand the concept of brand or how it applied to them. So I happened to find myself sitting in a hotel room. I was in Toronto and I had a delay between two meetings. And it was a rainy day, so I couldn't walk around outside. So I was kind of stuck in my hotel room for this 2-hour block. And I said, imagine if there was a system to systematically take these companies through a journey. And at the other end, they have a cohesive, fully integrated, unique, and distinctive brand message and platform identity that can live online, offline, and through all of their marketing channels. And on that day, it was, I guess it was probably like sometime in May of 1998, the Brand Leadership Solution was born. And since then, we've taken over 200 brands through the process and had high marks across the board.
That's phenomenal. You know, that I'm so happy that you saw that disconnect, because I see it often, even to this day, where people present themselves one way online, and then when you walk into their establishment, perhaps it's a completely different experience. And I don't know about you, but I don't like surprises other than the ones that I really want. Right.
That's right.
So when I walk in, I just get a weird vibe, and that vibe is not succinct. It's not consistent. And we're going to get into some of this stuff in our conversation. But here, some strategies. So you've been around, a very long time. And when it comes to seeing the changes and evolution of marketing, business to business, what are some of the big glaring changes, and what should some of our folks that are B2B be paying attention to so that they don't get left behind?
Great question. So the biggest change as it impacts the B2B brand and marketing space is, I will say, the fragmentation of marketing channels and the need to actually work within those marketing channels. So by that, I mean, if you go back maybe, I'm going to say 15 years, 20 years ago, the average B2B industrial manufacturing or service brand typically didn't do a lot of what we would consider today as marketing. They were often sales-centric organizations. So marketing, and I don't mean to slight them because they're our clients and we know them and we love them, but marketing in their minds was giving their sales team a brochure, saying, all right, go out and hand this out. But the point is, and I'm being a little dramatic, the point is that they were very much sales-driven organizations, and the only purpose for marketing was at the behest of the sales team. Right. So what's changed today is that people can't get a hold of other people as easily on the telephone or in person. And we have this massive array of information at our fingertips now. So back in the day, it was usually the B2B sales executive who was the keeper of knowledge, right? And if you wanted to find something out about a product or a service, you had to talk to that person and bring them in and sit them down, right? Not so true today. So today, the big shift is that roughly 70% of a prospect's buying decision-making for a B2B product or service has already kind of been made before that person shows up. If they even need that person to show up, because the other big transformation we're seeing right now is more and more B2B companies starting to or getting very deep in e-commerce. Whereas, you could have asked the same CEO 3 to 5 years ago, and you've probably seen this too, Henry, no way, it can't possibly happen, not for us, too complex. Well, now you're starting to see certain products, certain services. Maybe if it's a manufacturer, they're selling certain spare parts online now. So they are all tinkering with e-commerce in some way, shape, or form. So, but yeah, the most dramatic shift has been that B2B brands now must rely on marketing to get through to people and to get those selling opportunities. Whereas before, it was very much driven by person-to-person direct sales. And if I want to scale my organization, I need more salespeople and more territories, and that's how I'll do it. Today, not so true. I need to have a very effective brand platform, and I need to manage now a variety of marketing and media channels effectively and consistently to drive predictable, repeatable results.
I feel like it's getting a bit more complicated than it was in the past. However, it's getting easier too at the same time. Let me back that up. Back in the day, like you said, people had to actually pick up the phone and contact you, and they needed a phone number. They needed this. They needed that. They needed that face-to-face. Otherwise, it didn't go down, right? I was listening to an interview with Michelle Pfeiffer, the actress, and she was saying, when I got into the movie business, I literally opened up the phone book and just I started with the A's and started reaching out to agents, and then that's how she did it, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you go to somebody's Instagram account, you can instantly be in their inbox in a split second, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be Kim Kardashian, you could be Joe Schmo. It's that simple to get in front of them. Now, whether or not they respond, this is a whole nother story. How you adjust the hook and the story and the what's the hook, the story, and what's the hell the message or the offer, right? Yeah. Like, you don't get that right and you're screwed. So the big question that I get all the time is, how does B2B connect like, where can I start to do some B2B connecting that doesn't feel like cold calling?
Mm-hmm. Well, believe it or not, some of the, they're not old by, 20-year standards, but some of the tried and true B2B channels still work terrifically. One of them being conferences and trade shows. So despite all the technology, social media, marketing automation, video blogging, and the like, conferences and trade shows are still one of the number one ways for a B2B brand to engage audiences in mass.
Can you break that down for us, though, a little bit? Because I've been to many conferences, and it may be this may be a little personal, but I'm going to share it. Like, I tend to clam up sometimes, and this was me a couple years back. I haven't gone to any big trade shows in a while, but I tend to clam up and not get the most out of that interaction. So I just want to, if you can share with us, like, some ways to sort of break the ice and get the most out of these trade shows.
That's a great point, because a lot of the work we do, and believe it or not, it's one of the top. There's 10 frequent triggers why a company would turn to a firm like Delia Associates for brand redevelopment or brand revitalization. And a lot of times the trigger is, oh my gosh, we're going to this major venue, this major show, and we just don't look very good. And we can't show up not looking very good. So it seems silly, but that's often a trigger. So what we advise clients is, before any show, don't just show up. Have a theme, have a pre, ad, and post-show strategy, and go at the show with a one-thing approach. So in other words, you're about to go into a massive room with sometimes tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of visitors, and you want them to go home and remember you. And then the way to do it is not to show 300 different products or 10 different services. It's to show one thing that you're awesome at, and to show it remarkably well. Because remember, they're going back to their worlds like we all are after a major event. They're going to be digging out of emails and voicemails and stuff that they were supposed to do while they were away, but they didn't get to. And they're not going to be thinking about the 50 or 100 exhibitors they talked to. So, and when they do, what they're going to remember on the follow-up, and the follow-up is key after a trade show. That's where all the action actually happens, and that's where a lot of companies fall down, is they're going to remember that one thing. If you focused on one thing and said, hey, if nothing more, this is what we're offering, this is what we're awesome at, that's what's going to be remembered, and that's what's going to be acted upon. And then, some months later, when you say, okay, how many leads turned into, actionable prospects from that event, then you could start to do, some real ROI data to say, okay, that made sense for us to be at that venue, because, of the 100 people we talked with, 52 of them turned into be actionable leads that we're working through, and 10 are look like they are or going to be customers in the near future. So really having an end-to-end strategy around the show, really focusing on one core theme and one core offer is what cuts through the noise. And I see companies all the time. They're pulling out every single product under the sun, and when you go by their exhibit, it's like you see nothing. You see a wall of stuff. You don't really see anything. Whereas the ones that get very focused, you're like, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. Cool, and I remember that. The other thing that we coach our clients on is to make sure that their exhibit space and that their representatives are always in an open stance, always standing, and that there's a lot of open space in the exhibit, because a lot of times people will put displays and countertops at the front of their exhibit, and all that's doing is closing off visitors from entering their space. And I often liken the experience of going to a show or a conference as, unless you do it all the time, it's a little unnatural, because what did our parents tell us when we were very young? Don't talk to who? Don't talk to strangers. Mm-hmm. We're immersing ourselves in a room with tens of thousands of strangers. So lots of people are going to genuinely feel uncomfortable. So the more we can break down barriers, the more that we can open up and show that we're accessible and approachable, the better chance we are to have really good interactivity during the day or days of the conference.
I love it.
Things that we talk to our clients about.
So that's a great perspective from an exhibitor standpoint. Now, what about folks like you and I that attend conferences like Social Media Marketing World, where there's like 10,000 people that show up to this thing, right? The Traffic and Conversion Summit from Digital Marketer. These are some big whopper conferences that happen annually. And you're a patron.
Okay.
And you're a patron. And so you walk in and you may be a bit introverted. You may be, you may not feel like it's natural, like you said, to approach a stranger and start to talk to them. Do you have any strategies there to overcome that sort of fear? Because I know a lot of folks that'll attend these conferences, they'll go for the content and they miss out on tremendous opportunity because they could have pulled 50 clients from that particular event. And they left it on the table. Yeah.
Well, there's the old 3-foot rule that anybody that stands 3 feet within you go up and introduce yourself. So that one's an easy one. The thing that I always, it's another easy one is to always bring a lot of business cards, even though they seem passé. It's a great way to have an exchange and to give a physical offering of your brand. And then being an avid in session, during session user of social media. And in the B2B space, the primary platform is LinkedIn. So making sure that you're LinkedIn posting and that you're engaging in either the venue's LinkedIn feed or your company's LinkedIn feed, and then using that as another basis to connect with anyone you've met. Because I guarantee you, anybody that's at a social media or marketing conference is going to have a LinkedIn profile. That too is another emerging, it's been around for a bit, but we're having tremendous success with using LinkedIn messaging activity as a lead generation resource for typically for higher level executives in B2B organizations, VP, sometimes CEO. It's a lot easier to engage with a CEO if you are a CEO. And, doing LinkedIn profile optimization, LinkedIn automated messaging campaigns has been in the past year has been a very strong source of really targeted, really good quality lead generation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that do it wrong. They do it in a very kind of salesy, annoying way with LinkedIn emails and just pepper the heck out of audiences. Our approach is more conservative. It's more of the long game, slow campaigns, very conversational, very easygoing. However, at the back end, they produce some results. I mean, whenever you're getting a hit return of 20 to 30% and up in any marketing activity, that's usually pretty good marketing activity.
Yeah. Can you share some of that high level strategy, or if you could go as deep as you want? I really don't care. I think the more value we could give to our audience, the more they're going to benefit and come back and want more. I've done the LinkedIn strategy, right, for a couple of years. When I first started doing it, I was that guy doing it all wrong. It was all automated, and it was spam. I mean, I'm going to just call myself out on that. All right.
Yeah.
I tried to start with value. You know, I gave them a free PDF and all of that, but if they did not want it at the time, you are spamming them. Right. So I eventually got much wiser in my approach, and I went with more of a natural, organic way of interacting. So what I do is now that this podcast is taken off, I've introduced myself as a guy who's really passionate about entrepreneurship, that wants to help other entrepreneurs get to the level that I was able to achieve. And we got about 40,000 downloads a month. And I picked you very specifically because I think you are of a caliber person and you have a brand that I think could help other folks in this world. Would you mind coming on? And they either say yes, like right away, or they'll say, no, I'm in the middle of a huge launch, or, we're not taking any interviews right now, which is fine. And man, the ROI on that is just huge. Now, I don't know if it's ever going to turn into business, but like you, Ed, I go for the long game approach. I go for the relationship first and go from there, because you never know who this person's going to know. You never know who this person's connected with. And that could open up some major, major doors. And who the hell knows? You could be on an interview with them on the podcast, and they could be dropping so much value and bombs. You just got consulted by a really high caliber person for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of upside on both, on both ends. And so when I started taking that approach, it was insane, the return and the difference in response. So, I would love to hear how you handle that.
Well, first of all, I think the approach you're taking is terrific. And if I could just break down a little bit of what you said, I'll just kind of highlight some of the positives of what you're doing. So first and foremost, and I'll be very candid. You reached out to me through that channel and said, hey, would you like to be on my show? And I responded yeah, because I'm a brand guy, you're a brand guy. And one of the first things that you did is the way you came across was very genuine and authentic. And the first thing that I noted is, as we first started talking today, is, wow, this person is exactly as I thought they would be, which is exactly the way.
We didn't know each other prior to this conversation.
Not at all. Right. So that means that the initial approach was very genuine and authentic. The other thing is, you were not trying to sell me anything. If anything, you were offering me an opportunity, right? So you were giving, right? And I'm like, well, that's cool. And I took you up on it. And that's great. And now, we're at the beginnings of a relationship. So, what's going on here is there's a couple of ways to frame it. You referenced digital marketers. So they speak often about the customer value journey, right? And the customer value journey starts with awareness, and it goes to engage, and then there's some means of conversion, and then the brand must excite at the point of first activity, and then from there it has the opportunity to give a core offer, and then there's upsell opportunities, and ultimately you transcend to an advocate or a raving fan of the brand, right? So that's So we've taken a little bit of digital marketer and a little bit of other of our learnings over the years. We kind of distilled it down because I think the digital marketer model is set up more for B2C brands. So there's a few more components. B2C, you can compress it a bit. Nonetheless, you have to start with awareness. So until you're aware, nothing really happens, right? I can't buy a brand I don't know it exists, right? And the brand has to have enough potency in its messaging and in its activity to cause me to engage. And then and only then am I open-minded to any sort of next step activity, whether it be an inquiry, a download, a demo, a trial, whatever the next step would be. So I guess the point I'm making is a lot of times the LinkedIn messaging campaigns that we see fail, they fail because they're trying to either jump steps or over-accelerate the process. Another way to look at it is Clippenger's law of relationships, the ABCDE of relationships, right? You don't, it's rare that you sit down, let's say if you're on a first date and say, oh, it's great to be here. What should our first 3 children be named and where are we going to live? If you open the date that way, it's not going to go very well.
You're a creep.
A lot of these LinkedIn campaigns that we see are basically doing that, saying, let's meet, get married, and live for the next 20 years together happily.
Yeah, and have our first kid.
When's a good time to talk? Or you can tell me, fill out my Calendly, and we can do it now, right? That's not the basis for a relationship. So what we endorse, much like your style, Henry, is really let's be authentic in a warm introduction. let's be very clear about what we're offering, but let's offer. Let's not ask. Let's just offer. Let's give, right? Let's use a page out of the old, the BNI networking group says givers gain, right? Well, there's some truth to that. So a lot of our LinkedIn messaging sequences start by giving, saying, here, I saw this article and I was thinking of you here. We're putting together this podcast. We'd love to have you on. Here's some dates here, we just put this piece together. I'd love your thoughts on it here, So we're giving, and we're giving to an audience that's very targeted and very much would be appreciative or interested in what we're trying to say. And only after we've started to build and further that relationship do we ask for anything.
Yeah.
And that might be to have a quick phone call. That might be to have some other exchange. But we have to give first, and we have to allow the relationship time to grow, right? Or else we're really not getting anywhere.
I love how you broke it all down.
You got it right. And I think, some people get it right. A lot of people get it wrong. And unfortunately, that clouds the waters a little bit. But that's life, right? So
yeah. Well, I love how you broke that down. You gave people a real great outside perspective on how this is working and how you, from the receiving end, this is really good, Ed. We didn't plan on this, guys. So don't think that we had this whole strategy that we were going to plan. Oh, you're going to dissect my...
The results speak for themselves, right? I mean,
exactly.
1,000, that's amazing. You've got amazing results because you're doing it right, and you're reaping the rewards of doing it right. So that's awesome.
Now, it freaking took me 13 years to figure all this out, but it's finally starting to pay off. I want to share this story with our audience because this takes what you're saying to the next level or a little bit deeper. So my Brand Accelerator program for strategy and diagnosis, this isn't even design or development or anything like that, starts at $10,000. And we enrolled a new Brand Accelerator client in. We only take 10 clients a year because that's all we could take, really. Last year, we only worked with 8 clients, and I did more revenues and profits than I did in 2017, working with 48 clients. So we're on to something here, and we're growing and refining and we're building. But so we onboard a new Brand Accelerator client on Tuesday, and I asked him, why did you invest this kind of money in strategy? Because this is just straight strategy. And he said, the amount of value that you deliver for free on your social media platforms and the way that you educate made me believe that you can help my wife and I build this brand. And I've never, Ed, in 13 years of being in business, this is why I'm telling you, it really started to bite me over the past 18 months. Never in 13 years of my life did somebody ever say that to me, because I was a taker. I was not a giver. Yeah. And I was so afraid of if I put too much out that they won't need me anymore. And I realized how big of a crock of shit that was, because this validates how wrong I was. And so for all you guys and gals out there that are so afraid of putting out your best stuff because you think that they won't need you anymore, get over it, because I'm telling you right now, that's going to land you bigger deals, and it's going to land you deals with higher quality and caliber folks. And so you are spot on with what you're saying. And when you lead with the give, and I don't even expect anything in return here. I was just happy to meet a new professional that's in the branding space that has a hell of a lot more experience than I do. So I'm learning from you, right? But to give you that opportunity to get out in front of a large audience, like, it's the give and take, right? And so just keep that in mind, guys, when you're going about growing your brand. Like, you don't take the approach that we were making fun of before, hopping in the bed. But, sometimes that works. But is that relationship really sustainable? Come on, guys. We've all been through our dating years. We all know what those turned out to be. Come on, let's call a spade a spade. So, with that said, guys, I want to start to turn the corner and start to wrap up. And so the doc's prescription for this episode is a couple of things. One is, you really want to define who it is that you want to speak to, right? You really need to define who that person is and get clearly focused on that person. And I like what you said before, Ed. It's a lot easier to speak with a CEO if you're a CEO, right? And that struck a chord with me because I'm seeing a lot of people now come to market premature. They're trying to sell a product or service or really come out of the gates blazing, but they don't have a solid brand foundation. They don't have a legitimate product or service, and they don't have the cred, if you will. And so what we need to do is we need to build all that up first so that when we do come to market, they say to themselves, well, the audience says, wow, these are my go-to guys. They're not only showing, but they're proving. And I'm going to go with these guys because I like their story. I like what they're all about, right? And they're an experience, they're a practitioner. I had Patrick Bet-David on a few episodes ago, and he said, I don't listen. I like philosophy, and I listen to a lot of philosophers, but the folks that I really gravitate to are the folks that did it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we really need to focus in on. The other thing is that natural approach. If you want to generate a high quality business to business lead, we need to take it back to basics and ask ourselves, how would I approach this person in person?
Yep.
It's that simple. I mean, come on, guys. We complicate it with all the bots and the this and the that. That's all fun. And here's what I think about automation. Honestly, Ed, here's how I feel about automation. It's great. It's a great tool. Use it to become more human.
There you go.
Don't use it to spam and scam.
Yeah.
Just be more human. And so I don't have an automated system yet for my LinkedIn strategy. I don't. That's literally me taking an hour out of my day and literally emailing and specifically reaching out to very specific people. That's just me. I feel like if I don't put in that work, Ed, I don't deserve this conversation with you today. That's just me. That's just how I feel, right? And so it's unsexy. Yes, it takes an hour out of my day. I would much rather have a cigar, have a little scotch, play with my son. I would much rather be doing that. But if I'm not reaching out and trying to build relationships with people, then I don't deserve to grow this business. This business doesn't deserve growth. Okay? So those are the two big points I want to take away. I want you to take away today and run with them, execute them, and apply what we're saying here. Now, the question from the community today is this. What's one way we can better understand our target audience? So there's a million ways to Sunday to do this. I'm going to give you a real brief answer, and then I'm going to shoot it over to Ed and see what he thinks. So a couple of things that I would do is, one, I would leverage some resources, okay? So the one thing is I would look at Amazon.com. I would go to some big books that are getting a lot of attention in the press and in the industry, and I would read the reviews. And I would specifically go to the 3-star reviews, because you're going to get some really keen insight on what rattled their cage and what made them really happy. So you go into Amazon book reviews and you start reading, you're going to get a real good understanding of what your audience wants, needs, and desires. That's one. The other one is a website. It's called answerthepublic.com. And you just type in a key phrase or a keyword around what it is that you do, and Answer the Public spits out hundreds of questions that people have entered into Google. And you can click on a question and it will bring you to Google and just pour out all those results around that question. I just think it's brilliant because it's like you're basically getting an alley-oop pass there. All you got to do is slam dunk it. So you get a really good understanding of what they're searching for, what they want, what they desire, just by those two little things. Now I could go on and on and on and talk about this, but how would you answer that question, Ed?
So there's a couple of ways to approach this. One way that we assess that is we use an exercise, we just call it Ideal Relationships ABC. A stands for awesome, B stands for bipolar, C stands for corrosive. And then what we say is, well, we know we have certain criteria for the A level, the ideal relationship. So they utilize us as a brand the way we want to be utilized. They reward us, so they pay well, they pay timely, they enhance, they actually help us think creatively and do more innovative things. They're willing to refer and tell others about the positive experience of working with us. There's essentially, it's what we call the brand love affair, right? They love working with us, we love working with them, and they don't necessarily have to be our largest client. The one that when they call, you're happy to hear from them, right? And you're happy to service them. B is bipolar. Those are the clients that we never know where we stand with. Some days they're hot, some days they're cold. They're literally bipolar. We never know if we're going to get kissed or kicked when we walk through that door, right? And then the C's are the ones we should not have taken on, right? They're bad for our business. They're draining our staff, our resources. They're draining us emotionally. They're keeping us from doing our best work, right? And we've all made that mistake, right? So as we're thinking about brand, whether we're revitalizing it, retooling it, there's tremendous value in really understanding the A's, right? Because ultimately that's the way we want to set up our brand. We want our brand to be a beacon for those A-level ideal relationships. We really don't want to be attractive to the B's and C's, right? So that's one way we do it, is we take those, literally those three buckets, and you can do three lists and say, okay, you start to look at all of the relationships you start putting in that A category. Then we start doing an exercise we call read the tea leaves, where we basically, okay, put those, maybe put their LinkedIn profiles on the blackboard or on the table, put literature or visuals from their company and start looking at what are the commonalities here, right? There might be some that are implied. Oh gosh, it looks like all our A's are pharmaceutical. Okay, that's an indicator. There's some reason why companies in that market segment or that vertical are really loving us. Or maybe, hey, it looks like everybody with the title of VP of Quality seems to be an A. Okay, what is it about that? So, and if you start to even read the tea leaves deeper, you start to get even more insightful. So we actually did this exercise for ourselves at the turn of the year. And so we know we're a B2B firm. We know that our clients tend to be manufacturing and B2B services or B2B technology. Okay, we know all that. We know that we typically work with the CEO or president or the VP of sales and marketing. Okay, we know all that. We know that they're of a certain size. And as I was looking further and starting to read the tea leaves and doing this exercise on ourselves, I started to notice a very interesting pattern. Look at this CEO. He's second generation. The next one's third generation, fourth generation, second generation. Almost 70% of our ideal relationships are multi-generational family owners. I myself am a second-generation business owner. So you say it took 13 years, right? It took me 20-some years to realize, hey, there's a reason why we bond so well, have great long-standing, and most of these client relationships were like 10 years plus. There's a reason, because they're multi-generation. So on the turn of the year, we launched a LinkedIn group called Growing Up B2B. And it's got very quick traction, and it's got a very dynamic, very supportive. So much like yourself, on a weekly basis, we'll feature a new member of Growing Up B2B, and we'll let them tell their story, how you got involved in family business, and what's the key takeaway for somebody else looking at joining or staying in the family business. So when you really look at who those ideal relationships are and then start to read the tea leaves, you start to really come up with some great discoveries of what makes that perfect audience perfect for your brand. And then you have the opportunities to start to really speak their language and speak to messaging that appeals not to anyone, but exactly to them. So you become that beacon for great relationships.
Woo! I love it. That's awesome. I wrote it down, the ABC. of understanding who your audience is. And I would add to that. So, I would go to my existing clients and I would do an audit on them, right? And I would say, who was A, who was B, who was C. You don't have to share that with anybody, but you can start to make some conscious effort into seeing who fits into what category. We've all had our C's, let's be honest, right?
Yes, we have.
And we all had our B's as well. So when we know who we want and who we don't want, right, it gets a lot clearer when we ask the world, for that in return, right? And that's what I've done over the past couple of years. I mean, that's what really had shifted, working with less clients, making more money, because I realized, like, I have a 21-month-old son, and he means the world to me and my wife, and we need more time. I'm not getting any younger here. So, I need to start making some bigger business moves and really start to plan out the next 20 years of this business, the next 15 years of this business. And it's going to determine who I work with. And that's the whole point of the conversation is it's really going to determine who I want to work with going forward. And I feel like I've made the right decision because, man, the clients that I've received, the clients that have come to me over the past 18 months have just been dreams. A couple here and there, you may have 2 bad apples out of a whole year. Let me tell you something. That's awesome. That's an awesome percentage, right?
That's great.
Get really clear. I had this conversation with one of my team members today. Every Friday, I spend 30 minutes with one team member, and we close the door and we get in a Zoom call and we say, okay, you can ask me anything you want. Personal, professional, I don't care. I'm just here I want to bond with you. I want to connect with you. I want to learn from you. I want to help you. And right away, I saw the what was blocking her, and it was the lack of focus and what it is that she really wanted. And so when we got really clear on that, everything else got easier, right? And I was just like, boom. So don't be afraid to get super clear and focused, guys, and you're going to see a huge shift on what you say yes to and what you say no to. So, Ed, I can talk to you for hours, man. I can see it already, man. But it's Friday. We gotta get going here.
Sure.
For those folks that want to learn more about you and Delia Associates, where can we find you?
So you can go to our website. It's delianet.com, DELIANET.com. And you can see what we do and who we do it for and get a good snapshot there. And if you're multi-generational, check out Growing Up B2B.
I love it. Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show today, dude.
Thanks so much for having me, honey. It was my pleasure.
You got it. There you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. Real quick, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you 2 to 3 episodes a week. And I want to continue to bring you as much value as I possibly can to help you build a profitable and reputable brand. Secondly, if you haven't written a quick little written review on iTunes, head over to iTunes right now. Take a half a second. If you're enjoying the content, let me know. If you're applying some of this stuff and you're getting some great results, let me know. That is what juices me up every single day. I love getting these messages from you guys. Last but not least, we have the Brand Doctors Growth Club now open for enrollment. It is our monthly group coaching program. The link is in the show notes. If you want clarity, if you want focus, if you want accountability, if you want to cut all the nonsense out of building your business and you're looking for somebody to help you get to where you want to be faster and more efficiently and have a group of people helping you at the same time, this is a phenomenal opportunity for you to enroll. I'm keeping it tiny. It's going to be 15, 20 people at the most here. So grab a spot before I close it up. So the link, again, is in the show notes. Have an amazing day, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesigns.net.